Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Gary Feldman. I'm president of US Computer Connection.
And Ronnie Kaplan from Computer Training Solutions.
And we are offering you our monthly free webinar in Microsoft Office. And Ronnie is so generous and does these free training sessions for us. And today is on probably the most popular one, which is PowerPoint. People love PowerPoint.
Right. Well, we're going to be talking about charts, graphs, charts today, and how to create them. And really, although we said PowerPoint, it's the same graphics program in Excel and even in Word if you care to create charts there. But most frequently, people like to display their data graphically in PowerPoint slideshows. So we're going to use PowerPoint as the example.
Great. Well, let's get started.
Okay. So here I have just a kind of plain vanilla PowerPoint presentation, and what I'm going to do is talk about how you would create the chart. If you wanted to create a chart right from here in PowerPoint, you could say, okay, I want to create a title and content slide, and on the title and content slide you see among the other things that you can create automatically is insert a chart. I'm just going to allow it to use a plain old column chart, and when I say okay, it's going to give me a default data, just simple data. And if I wanted to, let's say I was a manufacturer of clothing and I'm going to put pants and shoes and whatever, I can indicate maybe I want to do last year's, and then I want to do current year, and then I want to do projection or something. So I could type my data in here and then fill in the numbers, and they would all be reflected on my chart. But quite frankly, you usually have this data already in an Excel spreadsheet. So why would you re-enter it here? So what I would like to do instead, I'm going to delete that particular slide or delete the data on it. And instead, I'm going to go to an Excel spreadsheet, which has some very simple data on it. And I'm going to select that data and copy it. And then I'm going to just minimize it. And here I can go to create a chart just like we did before. And I'll just say column chart again. And when I get the little spreadsheet, the PowerPoint spreadsheet, so to speak, I can right click in the corner and say paste this data from Excel. And you can see that there's an extra row here, so I'd want to get rid of that because I don't want that in my chart. And here is the data now, which has the different quarters on the bottom and the different last year, current year, projected, and so forth. So you can create your PowerPoint slide by copying data from your Excel spreadsheet if you already have it in there, which most likely you would, and then pasting it right here. Now, the way we pasted that, I'm going to go to edit my data, and I'm going to say edit the data in Excel. This is 2013 version. And even though I pasted it from Excel, this is just a kind of standard Excel spreadsheet. It has not linked the data to the original sheet. So it doesn't have the name of my original spreadsheet up here. So meaning if I change the number here to 400,000 instead of around 200,000, and then I minimize this, it changes it here. But if I go back to my Excel spreadsheet, it does not change it there, because that was just what we call embedded. It was not linked. You do have the opportunity to link information if you want to. When you do a paste, you have a lot of choices, and some of those choices mean that you can link. Now, that's another way to create the chart, but here's what I consider an even simpler way. If I have the data already in Excel, and even if I don't have a chart created from that data, I could certainly simply create it in Excel. For instance, if I didn't have the chart and I just had this information, I could select this information. And then again, I'm just going to use column chart as an example because it's easy, and do that, and I've got the chart created. And if I select the chart, even if this is not my final, I'm really going to put the chart in PowerPoint, and then I just do a copy on the chart itself, not the data. And then I go to PowerPoint, and let's say I create a new slide, maybe title only, and then I right-click. Now, here's where I have choices to use my destination theme, meaning the colors and so forth, or my source, and also whether I want to embed the spreadsheet or whether I want to link it. So if I link the data, again, either the destination theme or the source theme. So if I link the data, I'm just going to make this larger because it's a little small for people to see. Okay, if I link the data, what it means is if I change the quarter one, if I go to my design tab, which allows me to modify my charts, and I go to edit the data, even if I say edit it in Excel, and I change something here, the first quarter, it changes it here because it's linked. So that's the deal. I have it here and I have it here, and it's linked. So you have those choices when you put things in, whether you want to link them or embed them, and whether you want to pull in the colors and style from your original Excel, or whether you want it to blend into the style that you're using in the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, now notice I have the quarters here and the total here as the data sets, and then I have the last fiscal year, current and projected, as my x-axis. If I go to switch row and column, I can switch that around. If I go to select data, I can also switch it there. I can switch that and then switch it back whichever way I want. And I can also say, well, maybe I don't want the totals, just for argument's sake, and I say, okay. That's interesting because the totals stayed there. Let's see why that happened. If I say select data and I uncheck totals, then the totals are gone. Right. So I'm going to say select data, and I'm going to reselect the totals, and I'm going to switch that and say okay. All right, so I could switch that around anywhere I want. But I'm doing this in Excel, but the same thing pertains in PowerPoint, because in PowerPoint, I have a design tab, which I can switch row and column, select what data, edit my data, etc. I can also change the chart type. So if I decide, no, I want to use a bar chart instead, I can do that. If I want to use a area chart, I can do that. Now, not every type of chart is appropriate to every data. You wouldn't use a pie chart if you have 3 or 4 data sets. You could use a line chart. Maybe 3-dimensional is a little more interesting. So you can always change the chart types if you like. I'm going to go back to column and stick with something pretty simple to illustrate some of the things I want to show you. So here's where you can change your chart type. Here you have on the design tab, and this is in 2013. In 2010, you actually had 3 tabs for charting modifications. But here we have all kinds of different styles that we can apply, some of which are attractive and some of which are not, but you can make your judgment as to that. So they give you a lot of different styles here. So it's where they put the legend, it's whether they put the labels, the data labels, and how many grid lines and so forth. You can also change colors, of course, and modify by data sets or by the whole thing. Now, there also is a quick layout here. So for each chart type, they give you some sample layouts, and I'm just going to kind of move through a few of them. And some of them have different features, like the labels on them, or the legend might be on the right or on the bottom, or there might not be a legend where you expect it, or there might be labels for the various axes. This one has an overlap on the columns and so forth. So you can go and choose. You might find something closer to what you want to do without having to individually modify all of those choices. So I'm just going to leave it on that one. So for any kind of chart, whether it's a pie or whether it's a bar or whatever, there are quick layout choices. Now, there are also many, many ways that you can modify things in your chart, one of which is this add an element. And then on the element, you can say whether I'd like to have a vertical axis, a primary, a secondary, whether I'd like a chart title. Maybe I don't need a title because I have a title up here for the slide that I'm going to put that on. So you might change that. Maybe you want some data labels, and here they can give you an idea of how they would look. Pretty messy, but so I'm not going to put them on there. But also you can have a data table, which puts all the data below. And all of these features are exactly the same in Excel if you're doing a chart in Excel. You can indicate grid lines, and instead of only, you can put minor grid lines, so you have a lot more grid lines and so forth. So all of these different elements, trend lines, legends, so forth. If I like the legend on the bottom better, I can do that. So now my legend is on the bottom. Now, in the newer versions, they've also put these buttons next to a chart, and these are also the chart elements. So here you have, again, a way that you can put titles and labels and table, legend, and so forth. And if you go to each one where there's a little arrow, it gives you the choices, the same choices. So it's basically another way to do the same thing. Okay, so those are the design choices. And then there's also a format tab, and this is more involved with, oh, okay, I want to make this bar a different color, or I want to make the title, you know, prettier font or something. I want to outline the chart in something. So it's particular changes that you might want to make to parts of the chart or all of the chart. So most of the data related stuff to show it in the basic way you want is in the design tab. Okay, now one of the things that frequently comes up is, well, I made this number very large to show you a point. So I'm going to edit the data here, and I'm going to turn this back to maybe 200 because I want to show you that many times we have a data set, in this case the totals. Oh no, this is the Q4 data set. That's interesting. So the Q4 data set is much larger, but let's select the data and let's put the totals back. And the totals are much larger, of course, than the sum of the parts. And so in order for these smaller, the quarters, to show up better in terms of the relationship of one data quarter to another, you might want to take the totals and make them a little bit different. So if I say I want to format the data series, I just clicked on one of the total bars, which selects all of them, and I'm going to format that data series. And I want a secondary axis. So all I did was right-clicked on it and said secondary axis. So it's done that. However, I'm going to close this up. We have a secondary axis here, the primary axis here, but they're all bars, so it doesn't really show up that well. So the other thing that we should do, and I realize that I'm in Excel, I'm not in PowerPoint. I wanted to show you this in PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, right-click, it's the same thing, format a data series, and give me a secondary axis, okay? But I want this to really stand out, so I still have that total series selected, and I'm going to go up to the change chart type, and I'm going to go down and say I only want to change the totals chart type, and I want to make that an area. Let's do that. And when I say OK, now the total is behind the rest of them. You would, of course, put labels, chart labels on there, add elements. So you would say axis titles, secondary axis, and you would put your titles on the various axes, that this was the totals and that was the other. Primary, vertical. secondary vertical, and you would put, this was totals and that was the quarters and so forth. But also the colors don't work so well here, so we'd want to modify those a little bit, I would think. And so I could select that and say format the data series, and this represents color, the little bucket of paint. And I might want to change the fill. Perhaps I want to make it a gradient fill, and that looks better already. But if I wanted to change the color of the gradients, there are a bunch of preset ones that I can use, or I can create my own combinations of colors if I want to. And maybe I want to modify some of the others in a different way, and I just want to show you some of the possibilities. So I'm going to right-click on this data set, which represents quarter 4, and I'm going to say I want to fill that. And maybe I want to do textures. So there are all sorts of textures like wood and marble and paper bag.
Is that a fish?
Amazing.
I think we should throw the fish in.
Yeah, throw the fish in. So that's one thing you could do. You could use textures. You could use gradients. You can also do this, and I'm going to use this as an example because it's bigger. What if you had specific products that your company was selling, and you wanted to have those products lined up? Maybe you had 2 bars or 2 columns and you wanted to compare them. So I'm going to say the fill is picture or texture, but this time I'm going to go to picture, and I'm going to go online to find a picture. And maybe you work for Coca-Cola or Pepsi or something like that, and you're going to compare the two. So I'm going to just say soda here and let it find. Okay, so maybe I want to take that Coca-Cola can and say insert. Now, that's a really stretched out Coca-Cola can, but all I have to do is say stack it. And now I have these little Coke cans going up. I obviously had just that column selected. I didn't have all of them selected. So, and that happens sometimes when you don't realize it. So let me illustrate this. I'm going to undo that last thing. If I were to click away from those and I clicked on one of those bars, they all are selected. But then if I click on one of them again, I've only got that one selected. Now, normally you want to handle the series together. So if I again select the whole series with just one click on one of them, and I go to my online soda again, it's just a good example. So maybe you want to insert and then stack them. So maybe you had, Coca-Cola and Fanta and some other products there, or maybe it was a logo that you wanted to do that with. So that's just another possibility that you can use. So there's lots of different ways that you can modify this. Okay, so the 2-column, using 2 different axes and making one different than the other, like the area behind it, is a very commonly requested kind of thing. I also wanted to mention here's another way. If I close this up for a moment, when you're in the chart, you have that, and that's another way to pick the style you might want, just like we picked the style across the top. So they're giving you multiple ways to do the same thing. And the chart filter, again, is just like if you were saying select data. So you have the filters here. So the handy part of this is you could actually close up your ribbon and just use these to do most of the things you might want to do with your chart. Now, one of the things I would like to show you also is animating the chart. When you're showing the chart, when you've gone to enough presentations that that gets kind of boring after a while, slide after slide after slide. So you might want, even if it's charts, you might want to make it a little bit more interesting. So if we go to if we have the chart selected and we go to animations, you can say fly in, and of course the whole chart flies in. Not all that interesting. But if you go to effect options, you can say by series. So each series is affected. Now we can set that to do timing, but if I simply say, here, I'm going to put it in a start from this slide. I'm in control of this, and I can either click my mouse or hit my keyboard, and each time I do that, another data set is coming in. And so it gives you time to say what you want about them. And I'm just going to escape out. So you can do that, or if you prefer, you can set timing. Now that I close this out, if I go to animation here, you can set start. Instead of starting on a click, it can start after the previous item, and then you can build in a little delay, a second or two, and what the duration of that fly in. So not every animation type has an effect options that lets you do that, but a lot of them do. And I did it, this one had by series. Some of them also you can do by category, so it just depends which one you pick. So it's pretty interesting. And there are so many of these. Many of them are way too busy, and you don't want to really make your audience crazy, but you don't want to be spinning around the chart parts and so forth, or swiveling them is too much. But many of them are very handy. Okay, so you can animate your charts in many ways. Another thing I would like to discuss is a pie. So I'm going to go back to Excel. Again, you're very likely to have your data in an Excel spreadsheet already, so why reinvent the wheel? And, ooh, I don't have my spreadsheet with the pie thing here. Okay, so I'm just going to, oh, that's because I'm looking at the wrong thing. Here's my pie chart. Okay, so here's something that I could make a pie out of because it just has one data set basically. And so I can say, again, the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is to say I want to insert a chart, and I'm going to say pie, and I like the three-dimensional pie. And I'm going to do that first in Excel, and then I'm simply going to copy the chart and go back to PowerPoint and, whoops, and go to a new slide. Maybe I'll say title only, and then I'm just going to, again, paste. Whether I want to embed or whether I want to link the data is up to you. You can link it. You can also paste it in as a picture, but then you can't make any changes to it really. So let's say I embed it, and I want to make it a little bigger. And so a pie has some different choices because it doesn't have the same kind of axes as another type of chart. And so I have certain elements, but not as many. But I do have labels, and interesting with pie labels, you very frequently want to say, have percentages. So you have to go to more labels, and then you can have percentages, and you can either have the values with them or not have the values, and you can have the category name on there as well, which, okay, and maybe I want to make these a little bigger because we can't see. Okay, just so you can see that there are percentages there. And you can say I want them outside. So the pie is very effective that way. You could also, as I illustrated at first with the column chart, you could copy the data from your Excel spreadsheet and paste it into a generic pie that you create in PowerPoint. That's possible also. And one of the things about a pie that's kind of cool is if you do one click and drag, you can what they call explode the pie or separate things, and then you can move them all back in together. Whoops, yeah. If you want to explode just one piece, right now you see the little handles on all the pieces. You click again on the piece you want to explode so that only that one has the little handles or selectors, and then you drag that piece. So it enables you to do that. You can do as many as you want, but it's a question of whether they're all selected or only one pie slice is selected when you drag. That makes the difference. Now, if you spend a lot of time creating your magnificent pie chart like this one, which is quite unique in terms of the colors and all, and you're going to be doing this kind of chart monthly or quarterly, and you want to not have to recreate the wheel, you want to have all of the elements of the chart the same, the colors, the grid lines, the legends, and all that, you're just going to use new data. What you can do is in the Design tab, go to Chart Type, and notice there are templates. Well, first we got to save the template. Okay, let me show you how to save this template. And they've changed a little bit where you do this because there isn't a save as template in the ribbon. But you put your cursor on the edge of the chart, so you get the four-headed arrow. And it's a little tricky as to getting just the right menu. As you can see, a little tricky. It's a right click, but it's not giving me what I want here.
Ronnie, this is version of Office
2013.
Okay. And it changed from 2010?
Yes, it is. There are some different things.
So 2016 would be the same as this?
I would think so. I haven't looked at every little thing in 2016. I can't seem to get that menu here, which is really interesting. Let me try it with this. There's a drop down which gives me save as a template, and I can't seem to get it, which is really interesting. It's the edge of the chart. Ah, here it is. Who knows? Okay, so save as a template. So that's, if I was going to do this a lot, I'd probably go into the options and find save as a template and put it on my quick access toolbar or one of my toolbars, because this is a little tricky to get it. So when you say save it as a template, it takes you to a place, obviously you name that, let's say Quarterly Pie or whatever you want to call it, and it takes you to a Microsoft subfolder template, subfolder charts, and that's where it puts your template chart. So here's this pie sample that I created before and other ones. All right, so now if I wanted to use that sample that I created before, I would go to Design and I would say change chart type, and then templates is one of the choices. I didn't change it very much, but here's a different one. Okay, here's a different one. So there, so whatever features, colors, and so forth that I had in my template, I now can apply without spending a lot of time doing that. Okay, so let me know if there are any questions. You can go into your chat and tell me that.
Yep, so just go chat and we'll be able to answer anything that you have for us. If not, these videos are always put up on YouTube. It's going to be under the US Computer Connection YouTube channel. Ronnie will also put it on her website, which is?
Which is computertrainingsolutions.biz, B-I-Z.
So we will record this. We're going to send it out to everyone who signed up for this session. And since there are no questions right now, we're going to call it a day.
Okay.
Well, have a cool day, everybody.
Yes, stay cool. So long now.
Bye-bye.